Welcome to DD on the Spot. This is your host, Ryan Johnson. You may know us from our old name, which we will not be mentioning for certain reasons. I have my guest Ethan here from the band The Owl Eyes. They're an alternative rock band who have just recorded an album, and let me tell you guys, it is something that you need to hear. Ethan, it's great to have you on.
Great to be on, man.
Before we talk about the album and how great it is and all my favorite songs and whatnot, why don't you give us a little bit of backstory on what got you into music? What sort of fueled the fire inside of you?
Well, I'm currently stationed in Bloomington, Minnesota. I've been living around this area for the past, I want to say, 4 to 5 years. I came up here back in the fall of 2014. But my entire life, I grew up in this very small town, before all this, called Pattonsburg, Missouri, population of about 300. I graduated with 12 kids in my class. And for lack of a better term, just to kind of like do a broad generalization and make it quick, I was pretty much the only musician in that town. There were friends I could jam with, but there was no one that was really like a true connection musically where it was like, we can do stuff and take over the world. So I was kind of like alone with my creativity. And you learn pretty quickly in a small town like that you got to make your own fun. So music became my own fun, and my addictive personality combined with my just general geekery of just loving all things geeky, cartoons, animation, anime, comic books, TV shows, movies. I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick nut. Because of all that, it kind of combined with my love and my kind of alone time to hone my craft with music. And to kind of quote Marilyn Manson, music is the only thing that doesn't hit you back or call you names.
Absolutely.
And it kind of became my shelter. So I used music as I was growing up, and I came up with the group The Owl Eyes because on top of being a general geek and creative guy, I also hopefully one day want to be an actor or involved in movies in some ways. Acting is a little bit lower on my totem list. I'd rather be a director or a music supervisor. But when I was 14, I was like, I want to be an actor. My mom heard this ad. She got me involved in this thing called Tay. It's spelled like the, but it's called Tay. And I kind of giggle about that to this day. It's like, it's so freaking bougie. It's like, okay, yeah, you're Tay, yeah, and I'm Ita Teal. Cool. So, but because of that, I did some auditions. I met this acting manager, because of which we had to do a resume. My resume included all this list of stuff of music, because on top of doing all this, I was also involved in this program called School of Rock, which I will praise immensely to my dying days. Like, I want to be like the flagship child for that company. They done so much incredible work for music, education, and I had a bunch of shows already down on my resume of like performing live. At that point, I think it was like 100 at that time. And because of that, all that stuff on the resume was on there. It somehow floated in the hands of this agency in New York. They got me in contact with this creative consultant. A creative consultant, basically, in other words, is the guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy's cousin who knows a guy's brother who knows that guy, and that guy turns out to be like a really awesome.
Hang on, could you restart kind of like when you got into School of Rock, because we had a poor network connection and it got like really, really fuzzy?
Oh, shoot, yeah, I'm sorry. So,
yeah.
I got to School of Rock. I had about 100 shows under my belt at that time. That was someone in New York. They connected me to a creative consultant, which that name kind of struck me at first as someone who's very artistic and creative. I was like, creative consultant? I don't need anyone to consult my creativity. And it's a little bit like that, but it's not so much as that. The basic idea of a creative consultant is he's the guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, and that guy happens to be an awesome record producer based out of Nashville. So I got connected to this group called Sod Lounge Records, recorded my first EP, had it up on the internet, and I just been recording music and releasing it ever since, trying to play out as live as often. The live stuff is where I've been really struggling, not because of the performances. When I have the right group of guys, it's great. But what I love about being on this podcast today is like I feel like I can kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and show the inner machinations of what it is working as an up-and-coming musician with a few EPs under your belt, hopefully trying to release an album on your birthday, and the struggle of finding someone who is routine and will stay with the group and will believe in that message. And I think it's a struggle that all musicians can relate to. And at some points as a musician, you sometimes feel alone in your thoughts. And I want this podcast to be kind of like a way of saying, like, you're not alone. It's crazy out there. It's crazy for me right now, too. But fuck it if I'm not going to get this album out on September 1st. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Now, would you explain a little bit more what School of Rock is, like what the kind of the system is? Because when most people hear School of Rock, they obviously think about the Jack Black movie, and then people don't realize that there's actually a school that like now you can go to where it kind of teaches you teaches you the basics kind of like of music?
In a way, yes. So the School of Rock movie that Jack Black is in is actually somewhat inspired by a true story. There's a guy named Paul Green who's based out of Philadelphia, and he started the Paul Green School of Rocks, which now through several name changes is just School of Rock. And the idea is that it's an after-school, for-profit educational music program where you have all these different tiers and systems, and basically you as a kid could be a rock star. What programs I was in two things based out of my school in Parkville, Missouri, the Kansas City School of Rock. I was in Rock 102, which included Rock 101, but Rock 101 is just the private lessons, the 45 minutes, you get a tutor and you can learn drums, guitar, whatever.
All right.
But I was in Rock 102 and House Band. Rock 102 is essentially, I got all these posters on my wall that you can't see, like all the different shows that I've been in at School of Rock. I can actually move the laptop over a little bit so I can give you a general idea.
Wow.
So here's like all the different shows that I was in and participated in at School of Rock. And what those shows are is in Rock 102, on top of getting your 45-minute lesson, every 2 months it's a new theme based on the day that you go to get your lessons. First day of the 2-month period, you get a set list of all these cover songs based on your theme. And if you're a multi-musician like I am, I started off playing the drums, but I was able to pick up guitar pretty easily for some natural reason. And bass and piano I do dabble in, but it's still like very amateurish. For lack of a better term. But regardless, because of that, these cover songs will be marked out by highlighter pins, be different highlighter pins for the songs that you, for the different instruments you play. Your 45-minute lesson, you go through your cover songs privately. And then for the 4-hour period, you have group rehearsal where, it's like, all right, Heartbreaker, Pat Benatar, and then all the kids come down into like the main room and you rehearse the cover tune. So at the end of this 2-month training period of 45-minute lessons and 4-hour group rehearsals, they actually book out a venue and you play a show based on that cover theme in front of a real live audience. We played at the Voodoo Lounge in Kansas City. One regular place that a lot of the Rock 102 places went to was a bar called Aftershocks Bar and Grill in Merriam, Kansas. Great place, great onion rings. If you're, for whatever reason, in the middle of Merriam, Kansas, get those onion rings or mozzarella sticks. You will not regret it. Anyways, so that was the Rock 102 program. And then the house band was this kind of thing where you had to audition for. It could only be the best of the best of the best musicians in that school. Because we were the guys that straight up did crazy stuff. We opened for Heart. We opened for Jason Bonham. We opened for Leonard Skinner. We opened for Kansas, Ted Nugent. We opened for Lil Kiss, the Kiss cover band. We opened for...
Jason Bonham is also the son, if anyone wants to know, of the late John Bonham of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, and we actually got to meet him, and that was an insane moment because... We played, as the house band, we played in this little sidebar area of this major venue called Kansas City Starlight Theater. They do a lot of Broadway musicals, but they also do shows from time to time of major bands. Outdoor venue, fantastic. I saw Queens of the Stone Age and Primus there in the summer 2014, and it's been one of the best freaking shows I've ever seen. It blew my mind. But we were playing there in the April 2013. I think I got the dates right. I could be way off, but it was opening for Jason Bonham and Heart. and we have this little side kind of bar stage, and there's like the main stage, but we were never on the main stage when we played the Starlight Theater. We were just in the bar stage, so as people were coming in and getting their tickets scanned and everything, getting their food, hey, here's a little cover band doing some cool stuff. So we're playing there, and we just see like this kind of round, pudgy bro dude just like sitting like chilling with a beer, and he's like listening, and then we go, and now here's the Ocean, which is a song from Houses of the Holy. I believe it's track 5. It has one of the greatest drum breakdowns and odd time signature grooves in rock and roll.
Absolutely, man.
And again, Led Zeppelin. I'm doing scat singing. Don't copyright infringe us. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, you got the poster behind you. That might have to be a copyright infringement.
Yeah. I freaking love them, man.
I mean, just their influence. They've influenced so many bands. It's just, they are really like what their plaque at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame says. They were to the 70s what the Beatles were to the 60s.
Exactly. And then, in my opinion, also, the Pixies are to the 90s what the Beatles were to the 60s and Led Zeppelin was in the 70s. I'm a huge eccentric music guy. I was the kid at School of Rock that was also like, but no, seriously, you got to get into Tupac. But no, seriously, you got to get into Enya or whatever weird esocentric music was like out there.
Yeah, Enya's got some good songs, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason it's in the John Claude commercial video.
Absolutely.
Where he does, like, the sprint.
Yeah.
But anyway, so with the house band stuff and meeting Jason Bonham, we played the Ocean. We kill it because it was like one of the best songs that we have in the set list, and we love playing that tune. Afterwards, this bro dude comes around the stage, and he's like, "Oh my God, you got the freaking breakdown right! My father would have been so proud!" And just like hearing that,
wow.
Ego went through the roof. It's like, ah. So, yeah, I did not play drums on that song personally. It was just something that the other group did. But like being a part of these friends and these really talented people was great. I got comments for playing Highway Star and getting attacked by an old lady in the middle of playing Highway Star. That's a story for the ages. I got so many freaking stories from my time at School Rock. I'm thinking about writing a book about it.
Well, hang on. First of all, if you can't just tell me that you got attacked by a lady and not elaborate a little bit. Could you tell us a little bit more about that story?
It was the first show ever in my time at house band. I got in. I'm so excited. And what they generally did for like the beginning of the house band year, which started in April and kind of ended in the winter, because summertime, best time to play out live with music. So the beginning of like spring, we would have a show outside the main headquarters of School of Rock, just for a preview of the parents and some folks in the surrounding area. We always got our permits for, noise licensing and everything. It's like, hey, we're going to be playing out that day. And it basically was just like, this is going to be the first live show of the year. Here is our set. We hope you enjoy. These are some of the songs we're going to go through. One of the songs was Highway Star by Deep Purple. I'm on drums for that. I'm also very inspired by Keith Moon as a drummer. I also love a ton of other drummers, but for frame of reference in this story, Keith Moon's a crazy drummer. He's
absolutely. Breaking shit to at the end?
Yeah, putting gunpowder in his snare drum, so at the end of a TV live performance, he can do a snare hit, and the entire drum set blows up on stage with him. And on top of that, like just the general, I read one quote from a rock and roll kind of like a history book when I was young, where they described Keith Moon as a demonically possessed octopus with an agenda to play the best drums ever. I'm like, yes, that is an accurate representation. So with his influence, I'm kind of like a crazy man behind the kit. So Deep Purple by Highway Star being like a very jazzy kind of smooth drum song, I wrecked that out into like a hard rock monster.
Yep.
But it was good. I have video evidence. It's not shitty. It was good. So we're playing the song, and we get to the organ solo. Now, outside the School of Rock Center, it was in Parkville, Missouri, and Parkville, Missouri is right where Parkville University is, and they got like a major soccer field that's right by where the old school headquarters was, and they would have soccer games all the time. And all along this kind of like winding road up this hill are houses. One of these houses at the top, like the very tip top of this hills, belonged to a very old lady. I believe she was around 87. I believe she lived alone. I cannot confirm or deny that just based off this simple interaction. You know, rumors offhand, and I'm not a fan of rumors. That's primarily what my song Unknown Sin's about.
Yeah.
So, freaking, she had a tendency to always call the cops anytime there was like a public event whatsoever. She called the cops on every single soccer game sanctioned by the Parkville University people.
Wow.
Every single time she called the cops. Just like, they're too noisy. So imagine having a loud-ass rock band with a bunch of 13 to 18-year-old kids just jamming it out to Deep Purple. You can imagine this lady was losing her mind.
Yep.
So from the time it started, I believe she was going out of her house. She got to the school by the time we got to the organ solo. And she walks along, and she just goes dead center for me on the drum set, where on the drum platform for the room mics, the upper mics that catch the cymbals and things like that. The overhead mics for, I think that's the technical term. So they're over. She's just making a beeline for the stage, but not like running, just like walking with confidence, like, I'll show these motherfuckers. Yeah. And no one is noticing her except for the parents. And it's the parents' disturbance that causes the organ solo to stop. Because our organ player, Dax Mollendorf, he's jamming. He sees the parents. He's like, why are they stopping? He looks over. Oh, shit. And just hands drop. This causes the singer to turn to the organ player, seeing like, why'd you stop in the middle of your solo, man? Who then finishes his rotation to see the old lady, who by this time is on the drum platform. I don't notice her. I am so in the groove and jamming on my freaking thing. She is on stage now directly behind me, and I am not noticing her. The bass player ends up just cracking out laughing, but he's still playing too. So props on him for being a professional. He was busting a gut, but he was just like, ha, ha, ha. So I'm like, why is he laughing? Why is the singer, what's going on? And then by this point, I feel a presence pushing down on my back as suddenly, and I'm still playing, I did not drop beat at any point. My face gets lowered more and more towards the snare drum. And essentially my face was laying on the snare drum, and I'm like backing the backbeat with my left hand, because I was doing the I was doing the hi-hat part at that point. So yeah, it would have been my left hand, just like this close to my face, like, ah! She has pushed me down. She grabs for the overhead mics, and she's like, hey, who's in charge here? I'm still going. Who's in charge here? Now it's like a Rage Against the Machine cover band. And freaking the manager, Mark's already like on point. By the time she was like walking towards the stage, he's like, I'm on this. All this happened in like a period of like 13 seconds. Mark takes this woman, who I believe was about 5'7", 110 pounds. He is a 6'5", 280-pound man. Not hurting her, just picks her up like if she was a Barbie doll. Just like, whoop. Problem avoided. They are cheering, whooping, and harling because I did not break beat once. So literally, every single musician was able to time it out, get back into where we would have been on the solo, and we continue with the rest of the song. We kill it. And after I get off stage, I see Mark and the old lady arguing, which visually was the funniest thing I saw in my life. Here's this young, like tiny old woman, and here's this giant, like blonde hair, like manager dude. And I go over to Nick Riffle, and he's like, oh my gosh, dude, I think we're going to have the cops called on us. And I'm like, that's where I hear about the story about, how she calls cops on everything and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, how's Mark treating it? And Nick's like, God, you should not have been there. I'm like, what happened? He's like, he cussed her out. I'm like, he cussed out an old lady? like, how professional is this guy? But here's what happened. She started, like, going after us, like, and this is against the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It's like, you can't infringe upon my rights. And he's like, trying to be reasonable with her, like, ma'am, we already got the noise ordinances confirmed by the police. If you call the police, we simply show them the piece of paper, and we still continue playing. This is not going to solve anything. And she's like, I will sue you. And with that, Mark loses all cool, and he's like, fine, sue us, you bitch. And just the look on her face, like,
God.
Vic describing this like she melted like the Wicked Witch of the West. So I'm like, oh, Lord, what's going to happen now? Sure enough, 4 songs later, whoop, whoop, cops start pulling into the school parking lot. We get done with Styx's Come Sail Away. We're getting off stage. Mark is talking to the police, and the police is like, how long's the noise ordinance scheduled for? And they're like, 4:30. Like, what time is it now? 4:05. Look at their watches. You can play till 4:15, and then we'll call it good. I'm like, all right. So we finished our set at 4:15. The cops could have left, gone anywhere, have a good day. They stayed there and watched the whole performance and rocked out with us.
That is awesome.
That is one of my favorite experiences in School of Rock. I think if I were to write a book about School of Rock, that would be the first chapter. So that's a preview for y'all.
Yeah, I was going to say, you definitely need to write that. If that's just one of the stories that you have, I mean, I cannot wait to hear any more of them. But so after you did School of Rock, you went to McNally Smith College of Music. Could you explain us a little bit more about what that is and what you did there?
McNally Smith College of Music is now a defunct university. It is a it was a music education college, and the idea was if you wanted a modern, contemporary career in music, not going into classical, not going into, being whatever. It's like, here is not getting to orchestral work. But that stuff was supported there, but the idea was like a contemporary career in modern music. It's like, if you want to make it today, go to this school, we'll teach you the ropes, and then you can kind of like take the world for yourself. And you also had internship programs that got you connected with several different agencies. And, being in Minnesota, town of Prince, rest in peace, Bob
Absolutely.
Dylan. So because of all that, and also because my School of Rock manager actually sent out a mass email to all the School of Rock managers in the surrounding Midwest area, basically being like, hey, does anyone know a good music college? The girl, Stacey Marharlow, who I don't know which School of Rock she was. I want to say it was the St. Paul one, but it might have been the Burnsville one. I don't know. But anyways, she actually sent Mark an email, talked about McNally Smith. I looked into it. I loved it. I went there. And it was the best 4 years of my life. I freaking loved that college to death. I graduated in the summer of 2017. In the winter of 2017, a mass email went out to all the students saying that McNally Smith was officially closing. Out of the blue.
Wow.
Indefinitely. And it was a thing that has kind of sent a ripple through the music community in Minnesota, because it's like, what the heck happened there? It displaced so many kids. I'm lucky that I got out of there right before the shit hit the fan, and my degree is still intact and is solid, and I got myself a really nice music job, working full time to pay off the bills, and that's like my solid financial foundation to where I can explore my music more, and it's a job for a music supply company, so I'm still within the realm of music. I'm safe. I made it out alive.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of students that made it out alive, and quite frankly, some of these students were my friends, and it really fucking pisses me off. So,
did they say why it closed? Was it financial reasons, or was it
That's the only reason. It was they listed in the email there was not enough enrollment for the upcoming winter semester, on top of financial struggles the school was going through for the past 2 years, which was noticeable. It was noticeable that we were going through some hard times. But we always had the assumption, and when we talked to the faculty, they were like, "Oh yeah, they have a plan. The presidents and and the founders of the school, Jack and Doug, they have a plan." Apparently, Jack and Doug didn't have no fucking plan, and the whole thing went to shit. And by that time, there was just no more funds to keep the school open anymore. So they had to close. And there were students that actually enrolled that year, and then all of a sudden the college they're going to is closing. It's really tough to talk about sometimes because I want to be respectful because the faculty there, the teachers, they were like some of the greatest surrogate fathers and mothers to us in some way. And on top of that, just great guidance and direction and inspiration on a daily basis. And they kept us motivated, and they believed in music as much as we believed in music. And so it was never the faculty's fault. It's the founders. It's the financial people. It's the people that transfer money to this government agency to this government agency. In my opinion, this is my conspiracy theory, someone had grubby fingers, took a little bit more for themselves, didn't report it in their tax reports, and now we're all suffering as a result. And they're able to get away with it because, not to confirm any identities, but it's a rich white male. So
yeah, I mean, usually when you really think about that, even with the cost of enrollment to these colleges, not having enough enrollment, I mean, as long as you even have like 50 students, you should be able to pay off what you're looking for. Because, I mean, these teachers are so underpaid these days that, I mean, just your salary of the teachers alone would only need about 10 students. So I don't get how you could blame enrollment as a cause unless someone was, like you're saying, like someone was dipping their hands into the pocket, pocketing a little bit of money for themselves.
And on top of that, funding for these teachers was not an issue because all these teachers were professionals already in their career, and that was putting the meat on the table.
Oh, wow.
Did they take a check for McNally Smith? Yeah, of course. Who the hell wouldn't? But at the same time, that was not their main paycheck. Their main paycheck was already cemented in the status quo of the Minneapolis music industry. For example, one of the teachers there is Charles Gear. He's one of the financial advisors at Zfex Pedals, the pedal company that creates the Mastodon fuzz pedal, Wamp. I got a double rock on my pedal board right now. It's one of my favorite distortion pedals at the moment. Vibrophase. They're incredible fucking group, and they're making really interesting technology and really just being like very creative about pedals. They actually made a pedal that is powered by candlelight.
Oh, wow.
Completely powered by candlelight. And it's mostly just something to kind of show off and be like, look what we can do. But that still takes a really creative mind and ingenious, works around technology. Zachary Zfex, he is an artist. And Charles Gear is also an artist. He plays in several different drums. He's in Marijuana Death Squad. He works around with Policia. He works around with a group called Pink Mink, one of my favorite groups. And he was just honestly the coolest freaking guy. It was weird because he dresses like a goth. He was a goth youth and a punk youth in his day. But his optimism radiates and almost counteracts with that image. Mm-hmm. And he's also a super freaking determined individual. There was an incident where he got into a bicycle accident that was so bad he ended up getting his jaw wired shut. Wow. He could have taken a couple of months off. Honestly, he could have done that. He was so passionate. First day of, I believe it was financial. Was it financial accounting or managerial accounting? It was managerial accounting. He comes in and sets his stuff down. So I just want to say that I ended up in a bicycle accident several months back. My jaw is now wired shut. It will be taken out eventually, hopefully by mid-semester. But until then, if you have any troubles understanding me, just let me know. I will come to you, and I will try to be a little bit more efficient. But, I want you all to understand this is hard for me as well. It's yeah, very apparent, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah, you're good, man. Yeah, you're good.
Exactly, and I freaking love that dude to death. He's one of my favorite teachers there. Scott Laguerre was another awesome teacher. He had a class that I actually made a YouTube video for, which y'all can find on my YouTube page, about working at South by Southwest. We actually were the stagehands for an official showcase at the Blackheart Bar in Rainy Street on Austin, Texas. at South by Southwest 2017, and we got to see Chicano Batman, we got to see Temples, we got to see Communist Daughter, and we helped them load their gear on and off stage. We were the roadies, and it was incredible. I love that experience. I have so many great stories. I got to go see one of my favorite podcasts in person while I was down there, Double Toasted. Shout out to those guys. So, yeah, it was just an incredible experience and all these incredible teachers. But to further proof that they didn't really care about the paycheck, when it was announced there were still 2 weeks left of classes. The teachers taught those 2 weeks with no pay. They just did it for free out of the kindness of their hearts.
Jeez. I mean, if that doesn't make it even more devastating to these kids, I mean, yeah, I just can't believe that.
It's the separation of a family in a weird way. Like, they just did an auction, and there was some Facebook post about, like, the things that have been sold off in the auction, including these beautiful, beautiful painting murals of all these famous musicians made by a former student that went to McNally. Now they're just being sold off, and it's heartbreaking. But a couple of students actually went there to try to get some shit. I have a friend that actually ended up getting all the auxiliary percussion instruments from the resource center that they had there. So it's like, I never have to worry about finding a cowbell or a shaker again. Like, oh, man. So, yeah, it's, you live and you let live. That is life. And, I'm just happy that I got out of there alive and I got my degree. And Tim...
The one thing that I would say, though, I mean, we did talk earlier before this podcast was, and I remember you said something almost to the point of, with music, though, it is one of those careers where you are lucky enough where you don't really, I mean, school isn't necessary to get, like, an education for that thing. Yeah. Like, it's not like being a doctor where you need to go for 7 years. I mean, with music, if something does close, I mean, I guess the one saving grace for all those students is that, I mean, if they didn't learn anything because they were just new students, or even if they were, like, 3-year students, you still learned a lot. And, I mean, music is one of those things where, I mean, if you just get a basic idea, and if you get lucky enough, man, you can just take off.
Absolutely, dude. It's like Dave Grohl didn't go to college,
He didn't even graduate high school.
Exactly. He dropped out. And so when it comes down to it, the music industry, even though it can be very vain and very image-based depending upon the genre, pop, there is still creativity and there is still talent and there is still artistic merit there, even in pop music, because at the end of the day, the music industry is all about perseverance, versatility, and talent. Do you have what we're looking for? Are you willing to change for what we're looking for? And do you have the guts to go through with it regardless of what decision you take? If you have those three things and you really work on your craft and you take to heart those lessons that the teachers taught you, you're going to be fine. Is it going to be a struggle? Hell freaking yeah, but you're going to be fine and you're eventually going to find something in music one day if you're determined. What really sucks are the new students and the students that were this close to graduating and now their degree doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when the school defuncts like that, I forgot what the actual laws are on that, but it really pisses me off. Yeah. Because even though, like, at the end of the day, the music industry is all about the goods, having that piece of paper on your side does help in some ways. For example, what a lot of my friends do is they are music teachers to have like lessons on the side on top of their like regular job and their band, so they have a lot of extra income. When they graduated from McNally, and these were the students that graduated way before any of this hubbub was going on, they had a neat little plaque that they could advertise and be like, yo, I am a graduate of a music college. Every single mother in a tri-state area. Done, he's a professional. Kenny, you are going to get your guitar lessons from him.
Yep.
That can't work now with the kids that were this close to graduating and there's no degree. It really, truly just pisses me off hardcore. But I let it go because it's in the past. I want Resolution to come out with like, what the hell happened? Why did it close? What was the story going on behind there? And quite frankly, if I make it far enough in the music industry, I would love it if I could make a documentary about it. But at the end of the day,
absolutely,
it's all about going forward. There's a couple of songs that are played with my longtime drummer for the group, Zach Peterson, who I met coming to McNally Smith. He plays in a group called 69 Rumors and another group called The Rares. You should check them out. They're totally awesome.
Absolutely.
But he and I have been good friends, and he's been the main consistent drummer since coming up to McNally. And
is there a story behind the name The Owl Eyes?
It comes from the Great Gatsby, the F. Scott Fitzgerald
Oh,
novel.
yep.
A lot of people think about, the doctor's monocles when they hear that phrase, the owl eyes.
Yep.
It actually comes from this character who I believe is introduced in Chapter 4. He also dies in Chapter 4. He's basically a guy that's in Gatsby's library, and he comments to the protagonist, how all these books in the library, they're actual real books, and he's shocked that they're real books. He then takes one book off the shelf, starts skimming through the pages, gets like a smug little grin and goes like, it's a shame. He doesn't actually read these things. Check it out. The pages aren't bent. Puts the book away. We forget about him. Very end of the chapter, we discover that he died in a drunk driving accident.
Wow.
So the idea being that this guy is making comments and judgments upon pseudo-intellectuals, which was honestly kind of my feeling towards certain groups, a lot of groups in the metalcore genre, where they'll take a very artistic name, like a name from a really revered novella or novel, and then all of a sudden, you think they're the artistic exploration, and they're gonna, create music that's deep and thought-provoking, but at the end of the day, it's almost kind of mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
And that really pissed me off, because it's like, you have the creativity there to come up with a name and come up with how inspiring that is to you and your message. Why can't you then take that message and push it through song? Why does it have to be the songs are this, but the message is this? Why not have them both together? And I created the Owl Eyes as, in the beginning, a way to kind of be this self-reflective, hyperbolic mirror of these pseudo-intellectual artists that I don't like, these rock stars, these larger-than-life pop figures, and basically kind of break them down to show, you see how crazy and unhinged this world really is? It's not for the faint-of-hearted.
Yeah.
But now it's more of my time growing up, I've come to realize that with the Allied Man dying in the 4th chapter, the idea is that judgment was his sin. And in my, judgment's only referred, to God. It's at the end of the day, what is the golden rule? Love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. So now I want the Allies to be this kind of idea of the wiseness watching over the music landscape, and still being that hyperbolic, satirical kind of tongue-in-cheek reflection on these pop melodies and things that happen in the pop world. But ultimately the message kind of reached out and going you're not alone. You think that I'm some sort of rock god. I'm just as normal like you, and I have fears just like you, and I have doubts just like you. And because music can be such an immersive experience like that, Dark Side of the Moon for Pink Floyd was that album for me that changed my life.
Yep.
When I was 14, I heard that album straight through, front to back, looking up in the ceiling of my parents' RV. We were on summer vacation at the time. And I was just like, that, I want to do that. I want to do that with my, career, because I knew I wanted to be in the creative field. I just didn't know, do I want to be a director? Do I want to be a painter? What the hell do I want to be? I heard Dark Side of the Moon, and I was like, that's my mission. If I can make an album like that for today's generation, I've completed my goal. And it's been the upward battle ever since, with a couple of EPs, hopefully a debut album on the way, and getting that released September 1st. But currently right now, me and the drummer, Zach, we're looking for a bass player. We're looking for a guitar player. It's been a struggle. So if y'all are out there and you like any of the music that you hear today, and you check out my group, The Allies, on our website and hear the EPs, as well as go to my YouTube channel and check out the videos there. If you think we can hang and actually make stuff that's professional first, get in contact with me. I want to take over the world. Rock and
Absolutely.
roll stuff.
So you mentioned that you write your own music. What inspires you lyrically wise? Do you like read stuff and then maybe put that into like song, or do you even like see stuff in everyday life and then just say that? Are you always like constantly trying to look for new ideas for songs?
Well, yeah, it's very kind of like my brain is already wired premeditated. Like, if I don't have a therapist, but if I had a therapist, I would imagine you'd say I'd have a very low threshold for epiphanous moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone could just read me off a scientific fact where it's like, hey man, infinity is so large that you can't even measure it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But you know what that actually means, dude? What? It means that infinity is so large that everything that has ever happened in our preconceived known universe, right down to that pause right there, has happened an infinite amount of times in an infinite amount of universes.
I know, I just lose it thinking
somewhere
about that stuff.
In a parallel universe, so, to quote Joe Rogan, somewhere in a parallel universe, there is the same you making the same colossal errors that you made before.
Yep.
So if you have any friends going like, man, you could do better, just go, apparently not.
I listened to that
Apparently
podcast too. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. So we can now start talking about your album. I mean, your album, I thought, was unbelievable. I'd listened to it just before the podcast, and I mean, it was one of those things where I came on talking, I was like, oh, this guy, I mean, it must be, it's got to be, you know, all right or whatever. Then I turned it on, and the first song that I heard, because the interlude thing wasn't working, the beginning was I Could Care Less. Now, everyone out there, when this album does get released on September 1st, I Could Care Less is my favorite song, and it's a masterpiece, I really think. When it opened up, I mean, the distorted vocals.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You seem to have a lot of distorted vocals on your tracks. What's the inspiration behind doing the distorted vocals?
It just comes around with. I think we're getting kind of a little bad internet connection here.
Yeah.
But what the inspiration of the distorted vocals comes from a lot of different rock and roll, metal artists, a lot of lo-fi artists too, and that was just like a natural effect because. You know, for example, one of my favorite groups is Iggy and the Stooges. You know, the Stooges in general. One of my favorite albums is Funhouse. They were fucking broke and were vagrants living on the streets in Los Angeles when they recorded that album. To say that the quality was a little low, yeah, but that went into what made it awesome. And there's like this natural compression distortion effect that happens on Iggy's vocals with that record, particularly the song Loose.
Yep.
So I was like, I would love to kind of emulate that. And also the album is a concept album about like my idea being that if for whatever reason the world were to end today, that album would act as like a last living artifact of humanity. To basically kind of show the aliens that go through the rubble like, hey, we're humans, this is who we are, this is what led to our downfall, this is, what, fucked us up. And, at the end of the day, here's what brought us all together and why there was love and people love each other. And we're gone now, but welcome to Earth.
Yeah.
That's the idea of the album. So,
I mean, I
honestly wanted to...
Okay, so most of your themes that I found also, too, have to deal... I mean, a lot of politics. You mention... you don't mention Donald Trump by name, but you basically mention let's just say when you hear this, you'll know who he's talking about. You also seem to mention a little bit of mental health with your songs, Heartless a little bit, Make Me Mad, and Fear of My Reflex, as some, just to name another. And then Religion was another big one that also took the tone on you. Where does that come from, personal experience, or is that just from the world that you kind of see in general?
I'm honestly surprised that there was you found a religious connotation with the album. What song in particular did you think that was really going on? That's interesting.
I'm just looking through my notes right now. Hallelujah, Hysteria.
Yes, that one. It's there's a subtext about it about religion, but honestly, the inspiration came with I wanted to basically kind of create the beginning part 2 of the album to where if you get the vinyl version, when you flip it over and start side B, Hallelujah Hysteria is the beginning of the side B. And the title itself comes from, and my thoughts upon humanity is that we're a group that has this ability to approach and understand consciousness and, universality and, our place in the universe. We're almost like one of the only creatures on this planet, at least as far as I know of, that is aware of like their own mortality.
Yep.
And as a result, it creates this duality in man that is the hallelujah and the hysteria, and they both feed into and off each other, where the hallelujah side is the praisement, the small moments, the love, the care. The hysteria is the paranoia, as we evolved as humans, there was a hunter and gatherer thing, and if anyone did not look like us, we had to single them out.
Absolutely.
The biasness. So, but they also feed into and off each other because of that awareness of our mortality. We are so scared of death, yet simultaneously we await it with open arms.
Yep.
And that's basically kind of like the idea of like Hallelujah, Hysteria. It also, the beginning of those songs was written around the fall of 2015, and the last track was recorded like the summer of 2017. So it was like pre, mid, and after like the Donald Trump reign rolled across America. So it was my take and my perspective on that particular time in American history, which, say what you will, I think like we're going to look back at this time in the history books and it's going to be a crazy chapter.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait for the Donald Trump biopic, man. I don't know who the hell's going to play him. The prosthetics for the hair are going to have to be redonkulous. But let's see what Hollywood can muster.
I mean, I think honestly that the 60s were just a little bit more crazier than this, but I think that's the craziest period since the 60s. I mean, the 60s you had Vietnam, which was just took over everything. I mean, that's the thing that really separates that period from this, and you have the civil rights. But I mean, it's just it's very similar to the times that we're going in, and even now how we talk about just how crazy the 60s were and how they transformed our society. I do believe they will be talking about these next maybe 4 years or so, especially during the next election, how that turns out, and even the midterms. We'll have to see.
And we also got the great music in this time and era too. Like when I was growing up, I ran into this pitfall that a lot of rock and roll music fans will run into, where they're like, rock and roll is the only great music ever, and anything that uses electronic instruments or digital instruments sucks ass.
I used to be like that too, yep.
It's like, no, man, there's some great hip-hop and great electronica and great techno and even great disco out there that is amazing to listen to and can uplift your consciousness in ways that you can't even imagine. Music, to me, is a drug in a sort of sense. And when I get on stage and I perform, which is one of my favorite things to do, it's honestly like I go into a blackout period. I am aware and I'm conscious of everything, but it's almost like a possession.
Yep.
It's like, here we go. And with that, when I listen to music, I get just a bit of a taste of that. So different things from different genres in my wide spectrum of music appreciation can really light a fire in me. I am both a fan of Pink Floyd, of Black Flag, of Metallica, and of Vaporwave. I don't give a shit.
Let me just say, my one song that I listened to that really, really got me into the whole heavy metal thing, I heard Master of Puppets by Metallica, and that song just blew me away. It was just one of those life-changing moments. I mean, don't you miss kind of those moments when you're thinking back of the first time that you hear a really, really good song and how that just kind of like just changes your perspective and you're like, oh my God. Because I mean, when you hear it the second or third time, it's not the same, but just the first time that you hear a song.
Right. Okay. In that aspect, yes. But in a sense where it's like with this new music generation, I'm not finding music that does that. To me, that's utter bullshit because there is great music everywhere. You just got to dig hard enough to find it.
Yep.
And if that means going into modal jazz and figuring out what the hell that's about, it's like, take a deep dive, man. The water's fine. So
look up the Owl Eyes album that comes out September 1st. That would work out too. Now, before I get down to my top 6 ranking, I ranked the 6 best songs of the album, and I'm going to go from 6 to 1. Before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about performing live in front of a bunch of people. I mean, not that many people get to experience the high and the thrill of being able to perform live, and just that feeling that you get by just getting the reactions from the crowd, getting that feeling just of, oh my God, I'm doing something, and then people enjoy it. I mean, could you just describe what that feeling is like, and how just how it can be just a total mood changer, and how that's sometimes for most rock stars, that is their life right there, is just chasing that feeling.
Yeah, for me, it's honestly like this feeling of being in the absolute best place where I belong. Like, I'm a introverted extrovert. It's very odd to explain. It's like when I find my brand of mutants, I'm usually the guy talking the most amongst them. Mm-hmm. At the same time, getting to that point where to meet those new people and those new faces, it's a rough couple of first few weeks. It's a lot of social anxiety. Mm-hmm. I have a thing that I kind of deem as mouth vomit, because it's just like I'll start talking and it doesn't stop. So
great for podcasts, though.
True. That's honestly like my acting manager. I mentioned that to them. They're like, no. That's great, because most kids lock up and directors can't work with that.
Oh, absolutely.
You keep going. Directors can work with that. It's better to be super big and outrageous, because it's easier to rein in than it is to push out.
Absolutely.
I'm like, okay. So with that being said, playing live, I was, growing up, I was always trying to find that place to belong. Mm-hmm. And music became that place for me. But being the one kind of weird, eccentric music kid in a town that had a population of 300, not to uphold a cliche, but there was a lot of bullying that happened. A lot of it brought upon myself. I will admit now, looking back on future reflection, I was like, God, I was an asshole. kind of very disrespectful of my town and my roots and my upbringing. But I also think that that's, a part of youth, and you get old and you look back and you go, oh yeah, that was stupid.
Yep.
They're not
I
that
do
bad.
The same thing all the time. Yep.
There's inherent good values in growing up in a very small, tight-knit community. Mm-hmm. But one of the bad values is just like how everybody knows everybody and everyone knows everybody's business. Mm-hmm. So because of that, that's where a lot of the root of the bullying reigned, because there was no secrets. Mm-hmm. People knew me, people knew my family, and I would literally be in I would be reenacting that scene from Superbad in the 11th grade, where it's like, hey, John, can you give me a call later? Hey, Ethan, can you remember not to piss your pants? Dude, I was in kindergarten. People don't forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was, my kind of frustration, feeling like I don't belong. I'm always going to be the butt of the joke. I'm never going to have an engaging conversation where we're equals. I'm always going to be one step lower. And music got me out of that funk. And playing live was when I realized, oh, that's why I feel weird around these people. This is where I need to be. Mm-hmm. I need to be on this stage with this spotlight, with this guitar in my hand. This is my calling. This is my home base. This is my battleground. This is where I can hunker down when the storms come in. So music, in a way, also acts as a shield, in a sense, mm-hmm. where it's once I put that armor on, nothing can penetrate me. I'm good to go.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just great. I mean, that's what I really think it's all about, is just finding your niche, finding your group, finding what you really want to do in life, and just pursuing that. I mean, so many people just get caught up in just making money or just other things that really don't have to do with what they like. I mean, I used to be like that, where I just wanted, just to make as much money as humanly possible, just be able to retire as soon as I could, but I didn't have any goals in life. I didn't know what to do. And I just think, more power to you. I mean, it seems like you found what you wanted to do very early in life, and you were able to pursue that. That's just great.
Yeah, and I also have aspirations of hopefully get into that rock and roll lifestyle one mm-hmm. day, where I can live in a really awesome house and be on the beach or whatever. But at the same time, I count my blessings each day. I met my longtime girlfriend, who for sure she's going to become my future wife someday. Mm-hmm. Her name is Sky. She actually has a track on the album dedicated.
I was just about to say when I heard her name. Yep.
Yeah, I gotta make a quick apology. Sorry, honey. I know you probably don't want us talking about this too much, so I'm gonna quickly glance over this topic so you don't get embarrassed.
Everyone, look up Sky.
Shout out to my babe. But Yeah, I met her when I came up here, and we've been in love ever since. And we live together now in this wonderful house that I ended up having to get because when McNally closed, my alumni privileges got revoked, so I couldn't use those practice rooms anymore.
Oh.
So I had to hunker down fast, and I made calls to my parents, and they made calls to homeowners, people, and we worked out shit, and we got this house. I'm paying the same exact amount that I was paying for my apartment previously to this. And on top of that, I got a 24-hour rehearsal space and a little tiny studio where I can record demos. So it's like anytime inspiration strikes, I'm going in there.
That's awesome. That's almost like when you hear about Prince, how he had the entire complex just mic so that even when he was like going to the bathroom, he could sing and then capture the stuff. I mean, that is just insane.
He also is credited to making, I believe, one of the first ever mobile recording rigs.
Oh, I think I remember hearing something about that, yeah.
Yeah, like in the early 2000s, Scott Laguerre told me the story. Scott Laguerre, another teacher at McNally Smith, he actually worked at Paisley Park for 2 years as one of Prince's producers.
Oh, wow.
Like site producer, mixing board engineer, shit like that. He's got some great stories about Prince, but then again, living in the Twin Cities, everyone has a Prince story. Oh, dude, I saw Prince in a hot dog one day. It's like, yeah, buddy, join the club.
I mean, just the reason that he's so beloved here by the people of Minnesota, I really think is because we had Bob Dylan, we had Judy Garland. They all left. They didn't come back or whatever. Prince stayed here, even though we have the shitty winters, even though we have just road construction constantly. He braved it out, and he was also proud. He promoted Minnesota whenever he could. He was proud of it. That's why I think he's so beloved, because Bob Dylan, I mean, yeah, he was great. Bob Dylan moved out when he was like 20, and he hasn't come back since. But Prince stuck to us, and he really showed kind of like the hardiness that I think the people of Minnesota had, which I really think, endeared him to the people. I mean, that's why whenever you talk about Prince to someone who's from Minnesota, it's just automatically they're like, oh my God, I love Prince. I mean, you won't find one person here who does not love Prince. So
exactly. And he was a tremendously creative dude. And what a lot of people don't understand is, like, although we have this kind of like persona of like Prince being like the dude who's like, Butler, 20 puppies, I need them.
Yep.
Like, he was that, but he also was aware of like humanity and not to push someone past their breaking point. But he also was like living in Prince land for so long that he couldn't understand the simple request of like, it's 3:30 in the morning, I want a Milano cookie.
Are you talking about the Kevin Smith story?
Yeah.
Yep, I saw that. I saw that on YouTube as well.
And he was like that.
Yep.
He was like, Prince, it's Minneapolis. It's 2 a.m. in the morning here.
In January, you can't get a camel. Yeah.
But that was him. But he also had this huge humanity in his heart. So he knew like the best people to talk to were already the folks that were working for him, not just like some stranger. And he didn't really have like a butler or a servant, as I recall.
Yeah.
It was just people that he worked with who were friends. Was like, hey, can you do me a favor? For example, one of my favorite Scott Laguerre stories, he's working down at the boards on Paisley Park. A wire blew out in the console, so he's like, oh, shit, I got to get the soldering iron and fix this.
Yeah.
He's working underneath the console. It's 3:30 in the morning. He hears Prince coming down the stairs. Scott says, I know it's Prince because I can hear the platforms. Because he always wore the high heel hoots. So it was
absolutely.
Like, click. And he's underneath the board, and he's looking at the wire 1 second, looking down the next second, waiting to see Prince, looking at the wire, look down, Prince's face is right there. And Prince is just like this, and he's like, hey, Scott, I need you to get me Milano cookies. And Scott's just under the board like this. He's like, what flavor? And he's like, chocolate. Okay. And he dropped the soldering iron, went to a gas station, and got Prince Milano cookies.
I mean, I just think, though, like when you hear those crazy stories, that just shows you, though, gives you a glimpse, though, of his creativity, because not everyone is going to say that they want, like the story that I was referring to is when he talks about, he's like, can we bring a camel here, like an actual animal? And he's like, no, it's the middle of January at like 3 a.m. But that just would say, like, oh, what a dumbass. Like, you can't get a camel there or whatever. But it just shows that his mind was always constantly creating stuff, and that explains why he wrote such great music and why he has the 500-plus songs in his vault that, unfortunately, it seems like we won't get released. But to go more on that, a little bit more on your songwriting. When you're singing a song that you wrote, though, how special does that feel to you?
Very special. It's honestly, in a way, I feel like it's the best way for me to communicate. I feel like when I try to do verbal interactions, things get lost in translation somewhere along the way, but not when I put it in music. even when people don't get what I'm saying, they really feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And like what you said with my music stuff being political, it is because I'm a very like ideological guy. I have, I want peace, I want this thing, and some of those are delusional fantasies to some extent, but I also have the hope and the faith that it's not, and hopefully we'll get to that point one day. But I also keep my lyrics semi-vague because I don't want it to seem like an attack.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, if you did write something that was super political, you might lose like half of what fans you could have had just by them saying screw that, it supports Donald Trump or it's against Donald Trump. Like, I'm not going to listen to it. So I think, yeah, I mean, especially once you start out, but then you see like the musicians. I mean, once you make it like big, then you can get a lot more political of like what you think because people are going to listen. Like, I mean, people are still going to be listening to Kanye West, even though he's a dumbass when it comes to like his thoughts or whatever. But I mean, they're still going to say he still writes great music, so we're still going to listen to him. But I mean, screw him when he's not doing music. But I mean, once you get that platform, you can kind of express your views. But yeah, I mean, you aren't so political that people are going to be like, oh, screw this, he's talking about. I mean, it's just you're just observant right now, and that's what I love about the album.
Yeah. It's like for me, it's I always treated Trump as a symptom rather than the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is that, in my opinion, I got this inspiration from Joe Rogan as well. The president is kind of a dumb job. We got one guy that's in charge of these three, like one major branch of government, but also working with two other branches, and they're in charge of like 40 million people. I forget what the last USA population quote was.
328 million.
328 million. We got one guy who's essentially leading 328 million people. It may have worked back when we had tribes and there was like 13 people in a tribe, but that's not going to cut it here, Jack.
The original population of the United States when we formed the presidential system was around 3 million.
Exactly. It's like, yes, that's huge, but at the same time, with them setting up these states and branches of government, it seemed feasible. But along the way, it just increased and it increased and it increased. And to quote Bill Hicks, the reason why our institutions are falling, our religions are falling, our global economy is failing us. The reason that's happening, it's no longer relevant.
Yep. I mean, so I remember in my business class.
We got to evolve or die. And with me and my music, I want to get that message across where it's like evolution and change can suck. And sometimes it can be detrimental. But it's what we as humans are. We're constantly changing. We're constantly, we need to give each other a lot of wiggle room to breathe and work stuff out because at the end of the day, the greatest thing that a human being can do is to let someone know that they're loved and they're capable of loving.
I definitely see Donald Trump, too, as maybe just like, we'll just talk about this for just a little while because we don't want to get too political on our first video podcast, but I just think he is a symptom of maybe like a last gasp of some of the former atrocities of our past, kind of like with like slavery, racism. Yeah. I do think that like, especially, it's kind of like shooting a bow. You pull the string back, which could be like a good thing, and then as soon as you release it, the bow's going to go forward a little bit before it finally settles like somewhere in the middle. So I think we're in one of those where we've shot the arrow and the bow is just going forward, and then I think it's going to move back a little bit and kind of even things out. But as long as we just stick in there. But yeah, I mean, the themes of your music, whether it's politics, whether it's the religion that I got out of that one song, it's just, especially for someone your age, I mean, people have gotten famous when they're super, super young, but with your insight that you have, I mean, I can just tell you have a bright career ahead of you, and I mean, it's just, I am super glad that I was able to get you on the podcast, because I believe, like, 2 or 3 years from now, I will be able to tell all my friends, I'll be like, hey, you guys can go on YouTube, watch my podcast with Ethan. This guy's now on, like, he's now, like, performing on Saturday Night Live music acts or something like that.
Oh my God, man! Like that would be the dream. By the way, I totally realized I fucking ramble. I didn't really mention what Hallelujah Hysteria was about, other than how it refers to the title of my album.
Oh, dude, yeah, totally. You can mention it.
The actual song was me just trying to do rap.
Oh yeah.
Like, I really wanted to like have one song because I'm so influenced by hip hop and rap. Run the Jewels, Death Grips. What was another hip-hop act I was listening to? Childish Gambino, of course, Chance the Rapper, Tyler, the Creator. Folks like that really inspire me. Danny Brown. So I was just like, I want one song where I kind of can show my appreciation for that. And I did this thing where it was like double meanings, where it's like I'm contradicting myself with each line, or I'm portraying two different perspectives, which each single line as it goes, but it tells this very vehicle story. So,
I mean,
yeah, that was the inspiration for the song, but the album was like the whole humanity as a concept album concept.
All right, so now I just want to also talk about what recording a song is like. I mean, how do you get in touch with people to like record your music? How do you find the space? I mean, how do you find the representation to get an album released? Could you just go over that a little bit for the viewers that might not understand what that entails?
Well, what's great about the generation we live in today is that there are no roadmaps. It's both a curse and a blessing, because back in the day, as a band, even though it was kind of crazy out there in the music industry, and it still is, you kind of had a roadmap. Get a bunch of guys together, learn some cover tunes, start playing in a bar. Start implementing some of your original music into that lineup to where people just want to hear you do that song.
Mm-hmm.
Then you put out a record, and you get that record opportunity by playing and doing enough shows and touring to where you get in front of somebody, I want to give you guys the money to record a record. You record that record, you get a deal with a label, they put it out, and then, you just successfully keep trying to do that until you go on to the next phase. And the label industry is crumbling because their record execs got greedy, and they made these terrible, terrible deals with the artists that no longer work. Now we're in this, digital streaming age, and we're kind of going back to that cycle again where, the streaming services don't pay their artists shit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's also a sense of, like, perseverance. It's like, that's the world we live in. Get used to it, kids. You gotta go forward, and you gotta persevere. You can't keep blaming that it's the fact that we have the internet that sucks. It's what's amazing about it is it gives us a platform that artists before us never had before. The problem is it also gives that same platform to people that have no musical talent whatsoever.
Yep.
And mediocrity thrives.
American Idol.
Exactly. So the idea being, okay, if you really want to make it in this industry, not only do you have to persevere, but you have to be unique. You have to find your niche. You have to be so strange that no one can compare you to anyone else, because then that becomes your brand. That becomes your image. And the thing with me is that I agree with that concept 100%, and I want to eventually infuse that concept into my music. However, I also have the idea that my brand is very fluid, because I'm inspired by acts like Radiohead, Pink Floyd, Death Grips, Sonic Youth, people that were just constantly experimenting and expanding their sound. So yes, while I'm coming from like a regular, just kind of down-to-earth rock and roll place right now, eventually I want to get into some really weird stuff. But as long as like my image and my visual branding and who I am, as long as I can make it as translucent and as fluid as possible, as being like the Owl Eyes is Ethan Teal, and Ethan Teal is the Owl Eyes, and the Owl Eyes, basically the concept of it being like, we are the wise watchers of the music industry. We are that band that is hopefully going to bring rock and roll back into the mainstream.
Absolutely.
And show people why rock and roll music is good, but hey, hip-hop music's good. Pop music has some intrinsic values already inherent in it. All music is great. Why are we doing this dividing thing of this genre and this genre and this genre? And by the way, I'm a hypocrite for saying that because I love the entomology. I'm such a geek about that stuff. I go into like why this is gangster rap, but is not gangster rap. But that's my brain. But I also recognize that it's all pointless anyway. At the end of the day, it's music, and all music is sound that you inherently through cultural values or through internal feeling processes, you give intrinsic value and meaning. So if you are a guy that can somehow hear a snap of his fingers and get a feeling and get an idea from it, that's music.
I mean, I couldn't have said that better myself, man. I mean, it's just something that you really need to think about when you're recording your music, though, or whatever, is do you ever wonder like how this is going to be interpreted by people, or or you just kind of say like screw that, I'll do what I want, or do you always just kind of say like when you're first about to like get famous because I mean, let's be honest, in my opinion, you are 6 months to a year away from breaking out, I think, and really starting to see a lot of attention. But are you conscious at all of like how are people going to interpret this? Or are you just like, I want to give my vision out, I don't care what people think, I want to spread what I really truly believe?
It's a balancing act. That's why when it comes to like some of my songs where I lean more inherent and give it a political meaning, I try to keep it as vague as humanly possible, because in like a Run the Jewel sense, it's like we are the joke, not just meaning it's like not you, the audience, are the joke. We're all the joke. We're all silly in this place. Humanity in itself, we are beautifully broken. And we always will be beautifully broken. We just got to recognize that sometimes the cracks within our soul can make very beautiful stained glass window murals.
Yeah.
Just look within. There's beauty in there. So I want to make these, like with the meanings of my songs, it's more cathartic. It's less about me worrying about like, oh, what are these people going to think? I mean, that goes into it because I'm self-conscious and, I'm a performer and I need that kind of audience to performer interaction engagement. It's like, please tell me that you like me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the inspiration for my music when I write it, I am not thinking about that audience. I am trying to release whatever pain, whatever thought, whatever thing is plaguing me at that moment onto the page, spill it out, and then from there edit it down to something that is more consumable, but also has my artistic integrity intact. Being aware that there is an audience expectation, don't throw them off completely, but finding subtle and nuanced ways to subvert those expectations or play around with them or make them satirical, so that eventually you can get to the point where you can straight up make noise rock music and people, won't care. They're like, you made this and this and this before in the past. You're free to go off and experiment. And at the same time, it's like you're free to go off and do it now. But for me as a writer, when it comes to me and recording, I want to start off like just kind of letting it all out, edit it to a form to where it could be presentable, and then from there finding ways to tweak it and get it back to that original place. So that way it's this balancing act of something that is familiar, so it makes it easier to dance to and easier to rock along to and get along with, but also interesting and unique, so it gives it that, what the heck is this? No one sounds like this. No one does that. And just progressing from there until it is the Owl Eyes. We are the rock and roll band that is also somehow simultaneously popular, because at the end of the day, for me, what a song is it comes down to four things. Rhythm, or not rhythm, groove, because it would be both drums and bass. Harmonic environment, melody, and lyrics. Your groove, how does the song groove? How does it feel? How do you bob your head along? Is it a waltz? Is it like a 6/8 jam? Is it death metal? How's it going to groove? Harmonic environment, your chords. Okay, now that we know how it grooves, how's it going to sound? Your melody. What's that thing that the audience is going to remember and take away from it? Even when they don't remember the words, they can hum that along. And then finally, the lyrics. What ultimately do all these three things have to funnel into to get the message out? And for me, that's how I break down all my songwriting. So I come from a place, an idea, a feeling I want to express, a thought I want to express, and then from there just building it up kind of like a building block, but being subversive and weird in my own way about it too. There's a technique to it, and a technique to songwriting that a lot of folks overlook, quite frankly, these days. But I feel like that the reason why the songs that we love from the past are still playing in, football stadiums to this day is whatever part of those four pillars of songwritings they got right, whatever part of it they got right, they nailed it out the freaking park.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why it stays.
All All right. All right. Now, I know that the audience has been waiting a while to hear my top 6 from the album, so I'll just go ahead. At number 6, I have Simply Too Tired to Care. And I wrote down, I'm just looking through my notes too as well, that I thought that this could be your ballad. I really thought, especially because in this recording you can hear the audience kind of sing along with it, they really seem to enjoy it a lot. And I just believe that could be the ballad, that could be your Stairway to Heaven maybe for at least this album. And then at number 5 I have Sky, which I probably won't mention because we don't want to get Sky in on this podcast.
Sorry, honey.
Yeah, the unknown song, we will just call it. I really enjoyed it because it was it had the dreamlike kind of feeling in the opening, which I really enjoyed. I mean, it kind of takes you to a different, with all the other openings, this one really could have kind of like stood out, and it really just took you to a different place, which was good. Number 4, I had Out of Rhyme and Reason, and let me see what I got down there. That was just the best opening of the album, in my opinion. The way that just opened up, just the intensity, I mean, that just really took me away. And then number 3, I had Fear of My Reflex, which I love it when it picked up and it had that 70s kind of TV show guitar riff kind of thing, like that kind of like the Shaft kind of thing. Which how did you employ that? Like, how do you make that sound, I wonder?
Yeah, like I took inspiration from that just because I felt like that's a great way to employ the guitar as less of a harmonic environment or melodic instrument and being more of an instrument that supplies groove as well. And I've always loved that sound. And for any guitarist out there struggling, going like, how the hell do you do that sound? It's really simple. Get yourself a wah pedal. It could be any wah pedal. Dunlop Crybaby wah pedal would be the preferred brand. It's $69.99 right now. Get that. You put your hands on the fretboard to mute the strings. You strum with the other hand in a rhythmic fashion. And you just play your guitar like it's a drum. And with your wah pedal, you do the bass. So it's always keeping that quarter note. So the wah is going back and forth. And with all this strumming, it creates that wow, 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 wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Going back and forth.
All right.
And yeah, that I wanted to put that in the song so bad because I wanted to create like a driving, rocking song, and I feel like Red Hot Chili Peppers, when they do that with their music and Flea goes off the bass, it can make those songs really driving. And coming from a place where it's a more funk background, it's more based on groove, it ends up making a rock song much more slicker and cooler than it inherently is, and I love it.
Yeah. All right, so for number 2 I got This Is Gonna Suck. Now, I enjoyed This Is Gonna Suck because it has sort of like the Anthem by Good Charlotte kind of feel in the opening, which is one of my, probably in my top 50 songs, probably like in the 40s or 50s, but I really, really enjoyed that. And it's just, I like the title too. It's kind of got like a punk kind of title to it, which I mean, you don't hear that type of stuff really anymore. But number 1, by far, it was the first song that I heard, and as soon as I heard it, I knew that this is going to be a great experience. I could care less. I love the mixed demon voice that you did partially through the song. That was one of those things where I was just like, oh, that is so cool. And then the intro guitar riff is just obviously, it's just outstanding. Could you, when you're doing like a guitar riff and when you write the lyrics down already, how do you kind of set it to song? Or do you already like have kind of like the lyrics in your, or like the riff in your head of like what it's going to sound like when you write the music?
In a way, yeah. It's like, I think that's the thing that separates musicians from quote-unquote normal people, is that we're hearing some sort of orchestration in our head, but it's just a whole bunch of people warming up and trying out different things. So most of the time it's just a cacophony. Sometimes it's just like a low rumbling silence. But then all of a sudden your brain goes, wait a minute, what the hell was that thing? And then all of a sudden it just keeps replaying and replaying and getting louder and louder. And eventually it's like so obstructive. It's like, oh, I got to get this down right now. And as that gets louder, other instruments come into the fold and you're like, hey, that could work with it. That could work with it.
Man. Okay, so now we've got the most important time of the podcast. We are going to plug the ever-living crap out of Owl Eyes. Okay. So where can people find you? What is your YouTube channel name?
YouTube channel name is The Owl Eyes, TheOwlEyes. You can also find us on our website, theowleyes.com. That's the best place to go because it has links to our Facebook and Twitter, our 2 most active social media accounts. And if you liked the music, if you want to hear more music, you can always check it out on our YouTube page. You can check it out on our SoundCloud. Hallelujah Hysteria will be dropping September 1st, regardless if I'm able to play some live shows afterwards or not. Hell. But we're going to get this shit done, and it's going to come out September 1st, and it's going to be on Bandcamp, it's going to be on Spotify, it's going to be on iTunes, you name it, it will be there. Using DistroKid for distribution, so if there's any musicians out there going like, how do I get my music out there? Check out DistroKid, you're not going to regret it.
Absolutely, sounds good. And I will be plugging the crap out of this band as they make it up and coming. And September 1st, you better believe I will be sharing about their album release. These guys truly are something that you guys will want to listen to. I mean, all of my listeners out there, give these guys a listen. Give them a follow on YouTube. Do whatever you can to support these guys. These guys are great musicians through and through. Ethan, I can't thank you enough for being on this podcast. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. And we would love to have you on later at some other point. Maybe when we check in with you, we'll finally know a little bit more about your record deal and all the money that you'll be making. So, but it was great talking to you, man. I mean, we learned so much, and we had so many funny stories that you told us, man. That was just great, and I really appreciate it. And you just keep plugging and keep on keeping on, man. With your attitude, man, and your knack for all these types of things, you will go very, very far. I have a very great sense in that. So, you just take care, and we will see you later.
Thank you, man. I will see you later too, Ryan. And as I always say at the end of my videos, the owl eyes are always watching. Hope you're listening. Have a great day, dude. And yeah, hey, record release show. You're invited backstage. We'll have some beers. We may be even able to do a live podcast. Let's do it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right. Signing off, Ryan Johnson.